Hello, Austin. I'd like to thank you for allowing us into your homes for this 20th edition of Esoteric Science Roundtable. I'd like to thank Jeff Contreras, the man, the myth, the legend, one of the standbys, the mainstays here of Access Television, for coming along board here today to help me out to kind of flesh out my today's subject, which is going to be a unified field theory. And I'd kind of like to tie in a lot of the different ideas, some of the more out there theories that are out there, and kind of bring it all home to kind of give people an assessment of some of the things that are going on out there that they may not be all that aware of. Just for your public perusal, just for your interest, and hopefully you can make use of some of this information. If it sounds a little bit out there, that's understandable. Maybe you can just kind of file it away on the top shelf, for later references until you can get something else to substantiate it and kind of bring it in for you, get some more validation on it. Jeff wanted to start off by introducing something that he came across recently on the internet, which is the 8 veils. And this basically talks about different levels of awareness as far as
And I really appreciate you having me on the show, Corey. I probably a lot of the viewers don't know I live in the mini studio.
Right, exactly.
And a lot of times people have to kick me out, to do their show. But this time, I just kind of overwhelmed Corey, and I said, I'm not having that today. I'm going to be on your show just because. And so this came across our email forum, the Therefore I Am forum, and it shows the 8 veils of basically understanding of maybe even reality of why it is, a lot of people say, why is it that I can't convince my friends about chemtrails or about whatever it is, and there's a reason behind it, and it's because if you don't have the foundation of understanding behind it, you will never understand. You can talk to people until they're blue in the face. And there's 8 veils over here, and we're going to go over the 8 veils, and then we can talk about whatever. And the first veil, and there's over 6 billion people on the planet, and of all of them, like 90% of them never think about anything other than what it takes to keep their lives together. How am I going to get my next paycheck? I got to pay rent. How am I going to make enough money to get that car that I always wanted, or I need to go on vacation? And so 90% of all of the world only live from day to day just wondering and thinking about what's that going to take for them to survive. Let's see over here. Okay. Then the first veil here, 10% of us are going to pierce the first veil and find out the world of politics. And boy, we down here at Access Television, almost everybody has pierced this veil. We'll vote, we'll be active, have an opinion, and our opinions are shaped by the physical world around us. We have the tendency to accept that the government officials, network media personalities, and other experts are the voices of authority. 90% of us, though, who pierce this veil will live our whole lives without piercing the next second veil. Now, the second veil, 10% of those who pierce the first veil will pierce the second. And this explores the world of history, the relationship between man and government, the meaning of self-government through either constitutional or common law. And unfortunately, though, 90% of the people who pierce the second veil will live and die without piercing the third veil. Now, the third veil here, 10% of us will pierce the third veil to find out that the resources of the world, including all the people, are controlled by extremely wealthy and powerful families whose incorporated old world assets have, with modern extortion strategies, become the foundation upon which the world's economy is currently indebted. And of all the people who pierce the third veil, 90% of those people will live and die without ever piercing the fourth veil. In the fourth veil, the 10% of us who pierce the fourth veil will discover the Illuminati. And this is a lot where you lose a lot of people between veils 3 and 4. You might get a lot, a lot of people here at Access, they'll pierce the third veil, and even a lot of the viewers actually. We're pretty fortunate to live in a city that basically is so enlightened as, Austin is. It really is. It's like the Athens of the South. That's why I live here actually. But in the fourth veil, you discover Illuminati, Freemasonry, and the other secret societies. These secret societies use symbols and they perform ceremonies that perpetuate the generational transfers of arcane knowledge that's used to keep ordinary people in political, economic, and spiritual bondage to the oldest bloodlines on the earth. And of all the people who pierce the fourth veil, 90% of them will live and die without ever piercing the fifth veil. In the fifth veil, 10% of us will pierce the fifth veil to learn that secret societies are so far advanced technologically that time travel and interstellar communications have no boundaries. And controlling the actions of people, that the people who don't pierce the first veil, usually, those are the easiest to control,
manipulate. Yeah.
is what their members do as offhandedly as we tell our children when they must go to bed. And of all the people who pierce the fifth veil, 90% of them will live and die without piercing the sixth veil. In the sixth veil, 10% of us will pierce the sixth to discover that the dragons and lizards and aliens that we thought of as fictional monsters of childhood literature are real, and not only that, but they are the controlling forces behind the secret societies. And then 90% of us who pierce the sixth veil will never pierce the seventh veil. The seventh veil? Well, hey, this person doesn't know what's behind the seventh veil, and I sure don't either. And believe you me, I did not make up the eight veils. I'll talk about the person who did in just a second. But in the seventh veil, he doesn't know what it is, but he thinks that's the place where your soul is evolved to the point where you can exist on earth and be the man Gandhi was, or the woman Peace Pilgrim was, people who are so enlightened that they brighten the world around them no matter what happens. And the eighth veil, piercing the eighth veil will probably reveal God and the pure energy that is the life force in all living things which are. I think they're all one and the same. And really, the interesting thing about this, just getting to the fifth veil itself, there are only about 60,000 people on the planet who have pierced the fifth veil, or in getting into the realm of the whole David Icke type of weirdness. And that is part and parcel as to why it is that you can't convince your girlfriend or your boyfriend, you can't convince your significant other, you can't convince your mother or your father, any of this. It's something that they have to come to on their own, in their own time, through their own understandings, depending on what type of experience they've come to know.
True. And I would say, though, that the veils that we tend to put over ourselves that keep us limited from a bigger, larger perspective, to some degree are self-imposed, and that we can't really get past them until we do make some move on our own, until we do have some self-initiatory process in which we start to discover and start to take a look around outside of ourselves. Now, again, talking about the first veil that Jeff spoke about earlier, is an instance in which a person is really largely only aware of what goes on in their own life, their own situation, and they really have difficulty looking beyond their own nose, in the sense that they won't really think about what they can do for another person. They're only concerned with what they can do for themselves, and that's a very limited place to be. And so if that's strictly your point of view, then you're going to have a bit of difficulty extending that to the next step, to take in consideration that, hey, maybe some of these other things that are going on might indeed be true as well. And you did touch upon the idea that there is manipulation going on politically and in many different realms here, as far as in our human endeavor, that we find that we're manipulated on in many different ways. And there are different terms that have been used really as of late to kind of describe this body that is kind of moving and shaking behind the scenes and causing some of these things to go on. Some might refer to them as the power elite, the New World Order gang, as Alex Jones likes to refer to them, and I myself refer to them as those that wish to enslave us. And again, you have to keep in mind that this group has been around a long time, thousands of years, and that through bloodlines and through what they deem their divine birthright, they feel that they are the enlightened few, and that it is their responsibility, their duty, to not necessarily just to enslave us, but to in some instances they're get misguided and deluded enough to think that they're helping us out and that they know better than us and that they have to kind of be big brothers to us. And well, again, a good term, they're big brother. They have to be a big brother to the unenlightened masses and to kind of shepherd them and to kind of keep them in the dark as to the larger reality and just keep them limited to their own small paradigms. And that's part of the problem.
And you know, Corey, and that's a lot of people that get into these societies thinking, oh, well, you know what? I really want to help my fellow man, those that I feel unfortunately aren't as enlightened as me, and I really want what's best for them.
Right.
And they think they're doing all the good in the world, and they never even realize that they themselves are being puppets pulled on the string, unless they have what the people at the very top of the pyramid think and believe is the right stuff. They'll never know who is actually in control.
Very much so. And even the whole idea of the whole tip of the pyramid too, it's very difficult for us to get to that point. And also to try to understand that there are other just common folks out there that can kind of grasp a little bit of the larger reality, and they can just start to make the moves to kind of come together. And the very first key is thought, getting your thoughts together and getting yourself educated, and then finding those of like mind, finding those groups and those organizations that you can depend upon to give you good information and see that they also are informed about what's going on behind the scenes. And then you can start to kind of see who you might decide to affiliate yourself with. But the first step is definitely education and trying to make yourself aware of more than just your immediate surroundings. And when you get to that point, then you can take a step out and look around a little bit more.
Definitely. There's no way that you'll ever know and understand or realize who is controlling your mind unless you know what your mind is, how it works, where your thoughts come from, what thoughts you actually have, and anything. That's why above the mystery schools in ancient Greece, they used to have it above the door, know thyself.
True.
It's so important to know who you are and to know what you're thinking. That way you can understand and determine when outside influences are manipulating your own thought process.
Very true. And I would like to also talk about the idea of the secret societies and those that work behind the scenes with this hidden knowledge. There are various camps, and just as it basically boils down to good versus evil. You're going to have secret societies that are strictly looking to work towards the enslavement and trying to take away the free will of the average human. By the same token, there are also secret societies that work behind the scenes that are working to help out the average human and to try to uplift and enlighten humanity and try to show them what is truly inherent in themselves that we can draw out of ourselves and how we can all work together from, again, a more enlightened position so that we can stand united and try to understand a bit more as to what we can do collectively to do what I term, or what I borrow, a term that I want to borrow, which is to seal the door where evil dwells. And there have been steps that have been taken, and increasingly as time goes on, this is something I want to get into as well, the time factor too. Man is becoming more enlightened also due to astrological events that are coming down the pike and different circumstances that are setting themselves up that are allowing us to take advantage of some of these things that are coming our way. If we can recognize them. If we're able to recognize them, we can make use of these tools that are coming our way, and we can start to work to try to arrest this evil and to, again, seal the door where evil dwells. And some of the things that people are getting into, the average guy on the street, like Jeff here, myself, Chris Athanas.
I'm not average.
Okay, maybe not. But people
slightly under average.
People that have a little bit more of an open-minded perspective are trying to see what they could do in their little area to use these same methods that those that wish to enslave us are using. The same methods are used unilaterally across the board. It really just boils down to motive. What is your motive? That's going to be the key factor in any instance as to how an energy is used. The force is the same for Luke Skywalker as it is for Darth Vader. It's just their motive and how they choose to use it. And that's something that I really want to try to really emphasize today, is that we are getting to the point where we have more and more access to And that is through access. I will say that too. Access television and many other means that we're having access
That's
to
a good
these.
segue. I like
Thank you. I
that.
appreciate that. That we're having ways to get a hold of some of this technology and some of these different things that we can do that may seem a little bit out there to the average person, that may be a little bit more along the metaphysical lines as far rather than your strict political lines that normal channels that people would think of going through in order to affect change. It's getting to be where individuals are making more and more use of this power that, again, this power elite folks have employed for a long time. The tables are finally turning. The cycles are turning so that this ability is more accessible to more people. And if we can collectively get together, we can use this energy. And I would like to kind of start to bring up some of the ideas of some of the things that we can do. And perhaps you might want to speak about the Orgone energy and the Orgone generator a bit.
Well, I tell you what, I've been having so much fun with Orgone in the past 3 or 4 years. I've been studying Wilhelm Reich, who's basically the scientist that brought this energy, chi, kundalini. There's many different names for it throughout the centuries, but he took it from the occult, the ethereal, and he brought it into the lab and actually to where anyone can study it. And he called it Orgone because to him it was the driving force behind the libido. This guy was a student of Freud. He actually was recommended by Freud to be the first head of the European psychoanalytical community. And he was for quite a long time before he became discredited because of his unorthodox sexual leanings. And really, all he thought was, hey, you need to have more sex in order to be a better person. And at the time, you know, they were just coming out of the Victorian age there in all of Europe, and that was kind of like a little bit too weird for most people. But so he called it Orgone because it's the driving force behind the orgasm. It's life energy. And just like you said, there is positive orgone energy, which is called OR, just O-R, and there's negative life energy as well, and that's called DOR, D-O-R, or stands for dead orgone energy. And getting to the more weird and wacky things, not just humans, but other intelligent forces that are out there have been using and manipulating this energy for centuries. And it's one of the reasons why Wilhelm Reich was so subdued and his energy kept under the table. For 20 years here in America, you couldn't even find any of his books. The FDA went to his lab, burned his notes. Here in America, they pulled books off the shelves. They burned those books just 20 years after World War II, and Hitler was burning books. And not only that, most of the books that Hitler was burning were Wilhelm Reich's books. Because this manipulation of orgone energy is so important and so vital. You can use it for almost anything. It is life itself. And he had discovered ways to make free energy devices with this energy. One of his more popular inventions was the Cloudbuster. And using the Cloudbuster, any average person could manipulate the weather. Think about that. I'm sure living here in Austin, Texas, you all know someone who either grew up on a farm or has a farm. Think of how dependent they are on rain for their livelihood. If each one of these farmers had a Cloudbuster, they could ensure that their crops would always be at the most optimum level. They could get their crops in every year and they'd never worry about money again. Yet, because of some weird HARP crazy chemtrail wackety weather people drive the family farmers out of business, just so Monsanto can sell us genetically engineered foods that aren't even healthy for you.
True.
We don't even know about Orgone.
And one thing about Orgone, though, too, it's an isolated little situation here. It's not like a HARP situation where it's a global scenario where you affect things here and you manipulate things to such a harsh degree, such an extreme degree, that conversely, on the other side of the world, you're going to cause turmoil and traumatic incidents to occur and weather patterns to show up on the far side of the globe that are related to what you're trying to do in this one little localized area. The Orgone is much more of a spiritual energy, if you will, and it can be much more localized, and where it won't be detrimental to the guy down the street. You know what I mean?
It's very self-balancing. Orgone is very self-balancing. You cannot manipulate an area of the atmosphere or the earth, and that's basically what it does. It helps helps strengthen the communication between the atmosphere and the Earth in order to find out what's the correct balance of ore to door energy for this particular area. This energy, that is what causes rain. You know, if you've lived in Austin for any length of time, you'll know that almost every summer we go through a drought stage. No more. No more droughts in Austin. I swear it. I mean, if you've been watching my show, you know I've been talking about these chembusters, and I poured the base for it yesterday. I'm getting ready. If there was chemtrails today, I would have completed the unit. I'm documenting all of this. It's very simple, ancient technology. Look, I have one right here. This right here is an Orgone generator. This little thing right here. And basically all it is fiberglass resin, metal, and you New Agers will like this. There's 5 crystals in here. 5 double terminated crystals, and this is an Orgone generator. Right now it's working. You can't tell. I mean, if you turn off the lights, it's not going to glow or anything, but you can feel it. You can tell that it just puts out the damn good vibes, and it regulates the balance between door and ore energy. And the more door in the area, it will convert that to ore or positive life energy, and it just makes you feel good. And everybody wants to feel good, right? So, I mean, very simple technology.
Right, just a simple device like that. And that's a lot of the things along these lines as far as, maybe not necessarily using the word manipulate, but as far as drawing from these sources and trying to use this energy for positive as opposed to negative means, a lot of these things are very simple. And that's why they're easy to debunk, because cold fusion, for instance, and things like that, that seem very simple, that you can explain it in a very simple way. The average person is going to be like, that sounds so simple and so incredible. How can that possibly be? You know, that sounds ridiculous. You just a simple little thing like that, can't possibly do what you're claiming it can do. But again, the simplicity of these devices a lot of times is the beauty of it. It is a simple device, but it can accomplish a lot. And we have to take that leap of faith. They have to take that leap of faith to understand that something like this can be a useful device for us. And you have to also consider, if you really look into the history of a Wilhelm Reich or a Nikola Tesla or people along those lines that really try to bring something out for a humanitarian reason. Tesla, he tried to beam electricity to everyone's home so that everybody can have free electricity into their homes without having to pay some crazy fee. But then when the power companies got a hold of that notion, they said, oh, no, we need to set up these long lines. We need to set up the power and feed it through these long lines. And then you get all this electromagnetic incidents that you've heard of where there are birth defects and things like that. So the current power structure that we did adopt is way it's not nearly as good, to put it simply, it's not nearly as good as the Nikola Tesla technology that he had envisioned, which again is a simple system, but again, there's no money to be made from it. He was going to try to set it up to where it would be a free system.
Exactly, and one of the beauties of the Tesla electricity was that he was going to use the spinning of the Earth's natural rotation as the turbine that generates his electricity. And the beauty of that, folks, is that you could never get electrocuted using Tesla electricity because it's the very same resonant frequency that our bodies resonate at. Sure, you would have to adjust all of the electrical devices that you have. But he was doing this back at the turn of the 18th and 19th century. There was hardly any electrical devices back then, and they all could have been modified and built accordingly since then. So a lot of people are like going, well, why doesn't this happen now? Well, think about it. All of the companies that produce anything that you plug in don't want this to happen, because that would allow the new companies that have the better, more safer technology to jump right on in there and be on even terms with these old money, old family, manipulated from the very beginning corporations.
And this so-called free energy is, for all intents and purposes, free. It's so inexpensive to generate energy from the Earth. And you have to think about it. Our Earth is just like a giant magnet. It has a positive pole and a negative pole, just like we're talking about Orgone energy and door energy, positive and a negative. The magnet is self-contained, but it has negative and positive within itself. And so does a human, really, for that matter, too. It's just a matter of how do you want to achieve balance, or do you want to accentuate the positive? Do you want to accentuate the negative? And really, it starts with thought in that instance, as far as humanity. personality, as we talked about earlier, man, know thyself. Understanding yourself, understanding how you fit into your little area, and then branching out from there and understanding more about your community, your city, and then, is building your understanding from there and understanding what we can do. And I do want to discuss a little bit about some of the different groups that are the groups that seem to be not really very popular with the mainstream media and not very popular with the powers that be right now. And quite quickly, just to sum it up, there are three in number. That would be the so-called Patriot movement, Christians, and the so-called New Age movement, even though I really don't like that term very much. It connotates some negative images, but it does describe a set of people that, these three sets of people basically do not like control, and these sets of people are willing to fight and die for a cause that they believe in. And so that is why they're being branded as dangerous or being branded as terrorists under maybe the Patriot Act or some of this new legislation that we see coming down the pike lately, that these groups are a legitimate threat to the established power base. And so that is why they're being demonized at every turn in the media. And you see that they're being painted as bad people. They're being painted again as more or less as a terrorist.
But and folks, don't think that this because you consider yourself a patriot, or if you consider yourself a Christian or a New Ager, or any of a combination of the three, that automatically elevates you above everybody else. Because believe you me, I've been in a lot of these groups for the longest time. I've been a Christian all my life. I've been a patriot here for more years than I can think of. And even when I was younger, I considered myself to be a New Ager. Yet, what I come to find out is that often in these groups, there'll be some dynamic personality to come along and just take over what they think you should be thinking. No matter what group you're in, it's always important to remember that you have free will and free thought, and you always need to go against the grain. That's how you gain perspective. Don't follow blindly anyone or anything at all. If you're a New Ager and the aliens were to come down into your backyard and say, "We're here, we know that you're so cool.
You're the chosen one.
We want to take you with us to our planet where it's so super cool and everything." If you were to just get on their spaceship, what a dumbass you would be. What if they did that and they ate humans and they were just bull crapping you? You know what I mean? If they were that benevolent, if they were that great, tell them, well, hey, why don't you park your spaceship here and teach me how to build one? That way I can have my own and I can go wherever I want to. Think for yourself, people. That's the main thing.
Agreed. Anytime that an organization becomes a cult of personality, like you're saying, where there's a dominant leader that it's his way or the highway, and that's whether you're an organized religion and the church leader, whether it's a priest, preacher, what have you, is very domineering and unyielding to other points of view, and is just going by strictly the party line, becoming a dogma instead of a doctrine. That's where we tend to have problems when we crystallize our thought and we become unyielding to new ideas and new concepts. If we crystallize ourselves and put ourselves in a little rigid box and say this is the only way it's going to be, then we're going to just exclude ourselves to a larger reality and a lot of the other things that might be going on out there. And that was where the difficulty lies. We have to lift our heads up out of the sand and start looking around and seeing. And I would really like to encourage those people that consider themselves more along the lines of a patriot, not necessarily more along the lines of someone that would be interested in metaphysical ideas or what have you, to think about it for a second, the common ground that we do have. We both value free will more than anything, I would think. Both those camps definitely have a very, very, very firm sense of spirituality, whether you choose to call it the Christian dispensation or whatever. There's a very firm foundational faith based in both of these groups as well. And so that's where I think we need to start looking at the common ground that we both have and get past some of the rhetoric and get past some of the rant that you sometimes might hear, even though that has its own place too. And you need to, it's good to get people aware of problems, whether it's, different people are gonna be more receptive to different ways of talking to them. And so we've got a good community down here, I feel like, at Access that are addressing the different types of persons, different types of attention spans and what have you. And so I would just really like to emphasize that we need to continue to think of ourselves as more of an extended family and more of on the same side as opposed to opposing camps, and that we have a lot more in common, that we can help one another more so than not. If we really want to make that, cross that little gap, which even the gap is illusionary. There's no real gap. There's more in common than not if we can just realize it and act upon it.
Sounds great to me. I mean, it's so easy. It's so easy to get your own show down here at Access. I mean, every single one of you out there who watches Access, I know how you feel, because I was like that for 2 or 3 years. And I would call up the shows, and I would want to have something to say, because I thought a lot of these shows were so interesting. I would call up every live show, because all of them have something to offer. And finally, after getting hung up on so many times, I just said, damn it, I'm going to go get my own show. That way I can be the one that's hanging up on people and not the other way around.
Right, yeah, this is a great place to have your little soapbox to espouse your different particular, political, non-political, whatever your viewpoint is. This is a great place to get it across to the public out there. And again, if you don't agree with the things that we're saying, that may be a motivation for you to come and take a look at possibly getting your own show and getting your ideas out there. And one other thing I want to touch upon too is the idea of esoteric science. Esoteric science is not a term that I just made up. If you can type esoteric science into any search engine, you'll come up with all kinds of hits. Esoteric science has been with every culture through every age since man became individualized and self-conscious. We've had guidance in that respect, that we've had what have become known as the mystery schools, in which you have this select group of more enlightened humanity, these guides that have watched the race from time immemorial, that have been able to gather the few that are a little bit more aware of what's going on and been able to bring them in as students. And we've seen that through every age throughout history. If we take the time to follow history, we see it more prevalent in the Greek society, more known through the Greek days, but it's been with us through every age. And it follows us even into the Christian age, and the Christian mysteries are very relevant and very valid in our day. And as we're moving in a transitional time from the time of Pisces into an Aquarian age, which is a more all-inclusive age, which is conditioned by what is also called ceremonial order, where you're going to see more group thinking, more unanimity, more collective thoughts. And the separate me thinking is going to kind of fall to the wayside more and more in the future. And we do have a benchmark year coming right down the pike very soon from now, which is the year 2012. And that also is one of the reasons why you see the powers that be really trying to put the clamps on it, really trying to lay it on thick right now, because they know the time is short. They know they have very limited time in order to either completely con us and completely enslave us, or there's going to be enough cracks and enough light's going to be let in to where people are going to become more aware of what's going on, and you're going to have an incremental stage where a lot of people in a short amount of time are going to become more aware of what's going on in a larger reality, and we are going to be able to have this collective consciousness, if you will, which some people refer to as a Christ consciousness, where the quality of love will be expressed more so, and more people will be concerned about goodwill and right human relations, and what can I do to help us to be a better place? What can I do to help my fellow man? And get past, again, the me thinking. I see that is coming down the pike and coming more into the fore, and there's so many different discoveries that we can talk about too that are part of that. And maybe you're familiar with Edgar Cayce talking about the Hall of Records that's going to be potentially opened up beneath one of the paws of the Sphinx. And there's many legends of old knowledge and cycles that come into being, to where the knowledge goes underground for a while, and then there's a cycle where it comes into the fore. And we're right on the verge of the cycle where knowledge is going to be more accessible to everyday people. And again, with just the different discoveries that are going on right now, here's a little quick article I want to read very briefly that got out of the Austin Statesman a few weeks ago. Scientist says he has discovered a tiny island submerged off the central California coast more than 16,000 years after it slipped from view during the waning years of the last ice age. The island, little more than a mile in length, lies 400 feet underwater, about a dozen miles from shore, said University of California, Santa Barbara scientist Ed Keller. The island likely vanished thousands of years before the first humans arrived in Southern California. And again, more of these discoveries are coming into the fore, that we're finding more and more evidence of who we were far into antiquity, and realizing more and more, and I think this is going to become more prevalent and more predominant in the mainstream thinking, that, hey, we were a little bit more qualified back then, and we were a little bit more intelligent and a lot more than people realize, more than science normally is giving folks back then credit for. And I'm talking, 10,000 years ago or better, that we did have very highly advanced technological civilizations that were flourishing all over the globe, and that their remnants are here. They're just tucked away, and we're yet to rediscover them. But I think the time is short in which we will soon someday find these things.
Case in point, the Mayans. I mean, here is a civilization that a lot of people would think, oh, well, they weren't very advanced technologically. They were just a bunch of Indians that grouped together, and yeah, they had some cities and whatnot, and perhaps they might have built some pyramids. But no, it was much more than that. The Mayans had an extremely advanced form of astrology and astronomy, and their Mayan calendar goes back up to 30,000 years before the time of Christ, and it ends, coincidentally enough, in the year 2012, the year that you had mentioned. The hallmark year, or the benchmark year perhaps, of what they consider to be the end of this age of humanity. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the end of humanity, or that's going to be the end of the world. That's the end of this stage of evolution.
Very good point.
Just to paint a picture here, we were talking about the 8 veils earlier, and like the 6th veil, when you pierce the 6th veil, that's where you find out that it's the aliens and the reptilians or whatever that are basically in control of most of the secret societies. The reason why it's so important for them to put the clamps down much before the year 2012, is because the frequency of the earth is changing. For the longest time, the Schumann resonant frequency, the frequency which is that of the earth, was 7.8. This has been climbing. I think it's like at 11 now, and it's moving towards 15 hertz. This 15 frequency, the aliens in control, the bad people, cannot handle this frequency. It's a bad frequency for them, and they can't handle it. That's why they are using HARP. That's why they're changing or terraforming perhaps the planet with their chemtrail technology, and that's why they want to chip us. It's not about buying and selling. That's the lowest level of it at all. They can track us now, what we buy and sell. They can see us if they want to from satellites. That is the smallest part of it at all. They want to chip us to keep our frequency closer to the 7.8 frequency that they can control us and manipulate us from.
Very interesting point. That is true. And there's some people that talk about a quickening or a hastening period that's going on right now. I think that's all part of what's going on right now as far as us moving into this new astrological age. And again, it's not going to be a wham bam instant thing where all of a sudden, we all of a sudden are instantly enlightened. But it's going to be a gradual process that's going to allow us to understand, again, what we are as humans, the latent capacity that we have by being human. There's so many people that are so willing to give up their rights, and there's so many people that are constantly having their hand out. Me, the people that are tied up with the government programs, and there are people that they want the government to come in and structure things. They want the universal health care and all these kind of things. But some of these things are good in concept, but you have to understand you're taking out the free choice. The more you have a uniform situation for everyone, the less choice you have. That's just the bottom line. Just the idea of a new world order where there's one government or one religion is very limiting, and that's what frightens a lot of people. And also you have people that are looking for a rapture situation, that are kicking back and they're saying, oh, I'm a good Christian, I believe in Jesus, I believe in God, so I'm just going to kick back and wait, and I'm going to be whisked away from all worries and cares, and everything's going to be just fine, and all of you sinners down there are going to have to suffer and pay through this trial and tribulation period while I'm going to be plucking my harp and what have you up in some heavenly abode. And I think that's a bit misleading, and that whole paradigm to me is very disempowering. I think that we have a duty and obligation to work down here, to be part of this test and this trial. I mean, I think that true people do move away from their area that they were born in, what have you. But I was born in Texas. Jeff, you're born in Texas. I feel like this is my battleground. I feel like this is the new Alamo in a lot of ways.
That's right. I'm not going to anywhere.
You know?
I mean, I'm here for a reason, and this is the reason to kick some evil ass. You know what I mean?
If you want to put it that way, let's not hold back. Let's call a spade a spade.
That doesn't mean it has to be violent.
True.
That means I can kick the evil ass within myself to make myself a better, more pure, good or godly person.
Very good point. Very good point. It always starts with your own individual effort, getting your own house in order first, and then you can look around, get your head above enough to where you can say, hey, I might be able to offer my services and help this person, this person, this person, and again, collectively move this together and help one another out. Now, I know on your show you've spoken many times that it's for your own benefit, for your therapeutic benefit, and what have you, and which I can appreciate that to a certain degree, but you could be talking about, how you have a hangnail on your foot, or how, whatever, how you trim your nose hairs before your show.
You're giving away the next few weeks' shows.
I apologize, man. We need to let the cat out of the bag. We need to let the reality out right here and now. And you could be talking about all these other, very fascinating subjects that you could have people compelled by, but yet you choose to talk about more humanitarian things, and you will always bring out information that's going to be helpful to people. And I would say Chris Athanas is a great example of that as well. Somebody out there that truly has a humanitarian scope, that sees the big picture well enough to where he sees how he and his local environment here can impact on a larger scale. And we see that in many instances here. Access has been the birthplace of a bigger movement, and you see, I think it's really only going to get bigger and more. I encourage more people to come and get their shows, whether or not you agree with our particular point of view or not, just to come down here and do your own thing. And the more local programming is down here at Access, the less of this bland federal programming that you see infiltrating more and more, the less you'll see of the federal programming. I encourage anybody that has an idea to come down here and put a show on, whether it's a tape show or a live show. Just get down here and be part of this community, because for the price, you really can't beat all of the perks that you get down here, all of the flexibility that you have down here for creating a show. It's really a wonderful environment, and again, I encourage folks to come down here and take advantage of it.
No doubt. I know people that have been in radio, television, at school, and they'll go 2 whole years before they ever even touch a camera. In Access, it's not 2 months. You're already touching a camera, you can check out cameras, you're in the studio, you're making your own productions within 2 months. It is so simple. I'm not saying forget about school, but if you're radio and television, if that's your major, get your butt over here to Access Television and actually get some hands-on training.
OJT, on-the-job training.
Exactly.
That's very, very important. I have to agree very much so, definitely. It's a good thing for people to get into. I wouldn't mind, Chris, if you could put up the phone number when you have a chance so we can see about taking some calls, see if there's any feedback from the folks out there, and see if they want to throw their 2 cents worth out. But again, I just want to emphasize that we do have the platform here, we do have the opportunity, and I also think of Austin in particular. There are other cities too that are really heads up as far as being aware of what's going on, but it seems like Austin in particular is really intuitively aware. They're really telepathically tied in, and it's here at Access and in other areas as well. Just I know it has a lot to do with the fact that we're linked in on the internet quite a bit. You have a lot of people that are educated. Yeah, we got a few callers. Let's go ahead and...
Well, I think he's live already. Can't you hear him?
I'm sorry. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good. Go ahead.
Hey.
Go ahead and comment.
Is this me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Thanks for the blowjob last night.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hold on a second. Let's see. Okay, line 2, you're on the air.
Okay, you were talking about the, what was it, and what was that again on the...
Or and door, as far as the Orgone energy?
Yeah. Because
Yes.
there's this Earth Final Conflict program, science program that comes on.
Yes.
And
Gene Roddenberry?
the Iridians, one of them is called the Or.
That's true, the
The
or.
head of the whole thing is called the Or.
Is that the negative? Are they the evil forces in that show?
They come out to be, yeah. They're going to take the Earth over and everything, and they're called the Iridians, but the head person was the Or. I thought that was an amazing, so I have to tell you that.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. That's one of the Gene Roddenberry series that I haven't really paid attention.
I've watched it a few. They make it kind of really ambiguous as to whether this race that's come down to settle here amongst the planet, whether they're good or bad.
Right.
They've completely infiltrated themselves into our society, but as to whether they're good or bad, it goes back and forth because it seems like they're like humanity. Some of them are bad and some of them are good. You know what I
Right.
mean? So there's
Kind of more like V in that respect.
I think so, yeah. I
Wow,
think
that's
so.
pretty cool. Let's see what we got here.
Right.
Line 3, you're on the air.
Chrysothenis is the devil, he's the devil, he's the devil.
And who are you, sir?
Chrysothenis is the devil.
Okay, well, that was a
That's pretty
clever
catchy,
little thing
actually,
there.
man.
Maybe
You
that
had
could
a
be
pretty
his
good
new
rhythm
theme
going.
song or something for Reality Expander. But apparently you're a Chrysothenis fan, and we do commend you for that. He's a good guy, and he's been putting out a lot of good programming.
And if he is the devil, I wish he'd give me some more power over you puny mortals. Line 1, you're on the air.
Hey, Jeffrey, it's Miss Pokey.
How's it going, Miss Pokey?
All right, y'all have a pretty good show going on here tonight.
Hey, thanks
Thank
for
you.
watching.
And I like what y'all said about Access Television. You know, I found my niche in life late.
Hey, we love the Trailer Park Show.
Hey, I love it too. It's a good time. Y'all ought to come down sometime if you ever want to come on.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate
I
that.
appreciate the offer.
Yeah, well, anyways, that guy sounded like the Alex Jones, please. Alex Jones, please.
He had a little bit more rhythm, though, I think.
Hey, I still like the time when I was working your show and it was beat me to the release button. Anyways, y'all have a good show. Corey, your show's pretty interesting. I've seen your show whenever you've got off on your subjects there. It's quite interesting.
Thank you. I know it's a bit difficult for everybody to get a good bite of it because I get out there a little bit, but I'm trying to reel it home and keep it to where somebody can get something out of it. And, you know, I want to commend you guys for the sense of community at the Trailer Park Show because you guys always have different ethnicities, different people from varying perspectives coming together, and that's what Austin Access is all about, and I really commend you guys for that.
It's a blast. The people you meet down there, especially Jordan Thomas, man, she's great. You ever met the Thomases?
Yes,
I don't
have.
think that I have.
Oh, Jeffrey will fill you in on the Thomases. they're all right people. Anyways, y'all have a good evening, and see you next week.
Thanks
Take
for
care.
the call.
Thanks.
Line 2, you're on the air.
Hey, Corey.
Yes.
I so appreciate your show.
Wow, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And I'm just a real novice. I haven't seen you very much, but and I'm just getting into Contreras too. But anyway, I'm just having a ball with you guys. I'm sorry, I'm getting another call. Typical.
That's okay.
My question is, I sometimes get confused with semantics.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ as my Savior,
Right.
you know, who has saved me from the world,
Exactly.
this gross junk.
Mm-hmm.
What words do you think are best to describe my belief? You know, because Christian just is, it doesn't do it.
Well, I would say maybe a simple way to describe it would be that you are a follower after Christ, and that's how I try to describe myself.
I have heard you say that.
Yeah,
I
because
have heard you say that. Now, is that the same Jesus I'm talking about?
I would certainly hope so. I mean, everybody has a little bit of a different varying idea. You know what I mean? If you line everybody up and say, describe Jesus, everybody's going to have a little bit of a different varying idea of what they believe Jesus is.
He's the Son of God guy.
Right. I do believe that, and I do believe that he has given us the most perfect example that we have to date with which to follow and live our lives by as an example. And that's about the simplest way I can put it. And I do try my best to try to strive to imitate and try to make that high mark in my own life and try to encourage others to look to yourself and find something in yourself. Even if you're an atheist or whatever, and like for instance, my brother, he's a hardcore atheist, but I think you can... But by the same token, though, he believes that love is the strongest force in the universe, you know, and if God is another name for love or vice versa, you know, is he really truly an atheist? It's kind of hard to say because he's a very humanitarian person. He really cares about other people, so, you know, it's kind of hit or miss. But I would say that we definitely, all of us, and I don't want to speak too much for Jeff, but I do know some of how I know some of his thinking about the matter, and I would say, yes, we all are in the same boat as that, and we can hopefully work together, at least start thinking together, thinking collectively that, hey, we can get ourselves out of this mess, you know? If there's a lot of people that say, hey, you quit complaining about the country. If you don't like the country, leave. But I say, if you want to change the country, you got to bring to people's attention what's wrong, and then we can square it away.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, I am very excited to be a part of this because I believe there is a convergence of, you know, the church and the political scene.
Yes, I definitely agree. I definitely
It's
agree.
explosive.
Right. You could talk about separation of church and state, which I understand the validity and the process, the thinking behind that. But, I mean, Congress opens with a prayer and what have you. So, yes, I think there is a merging to where those two camps are going to have to be forced to see eye to eye and to work with one another. Very much so.
Right, right. Well, this is a really fun time to be alive.
Yes,
I am
yes.
so proud of you two guys, and I just really like the spiritual thing.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words.
Y'all are just doing great. And also,
Yes?
vote for Mike Hansen for county commissioner.
Mike Hansen is a great guy. I don't know him that well, but yes, he's a very good guy. He cares about his fellow man very much. I definitely firmly believe that.
He really does.
Thank you so much for your call. Have a nice evening.
God bless you. I'll be watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Along those lines, I just want to mention this because I know that there's probably a lot of Christians out there that are basically waiting for the end times.
Right,
Stuff like that to happen. Folks, we are so far advanced technologically that they can fake a rapture at any time. God put you here on this earth for a reason. If you see Jesus manifesting in your living room saying, "Come with me, I'm here to take you away. It's time to go. It's the rapture time." Please be careful.
Question it and trust your intuition.
Question. Ask him a very personal question about yourself. Something that only God or Jesus would know. Because if you do, you could just be getting on the wrong ship there, be taken off planet, and just be food for the whatever, bad aliens.
Just like the episode of The Twilight Zone. You ever see the one where serving humanity?
Exactly.
It's like, hey, no, it's a cookbook. Ah! And it's too late. So, I mean, just be cautious about everything. Even with what we're saying and presenting, I caution everyone, please trust your intuition, do your own research, and trust your own heart in these matters.
In the same vein that goes with the New Agers. If in the spring of 2003, when Nibiru makes its next pass around here, if the reptilians come down and say, "Oh, we're back. We are your gods. We created you many thousands and hundreds of thousands of years ago. We've got a warning for you. Your planet is going to explode, and we've come to take you with us to the planet of goodness and where everything is milk and honey." Don't get on the ship. That's just stupid. This planet only comes around every 3,800 years. What do you think they like to eat? They like to eat people. Not necessarily our flesh. It's the adrenochrome, our hormones that they really get off on. You get on that ship, that's just like cattle going in the stockyard, getting on the truck that's going to take them to the slaughterhouse. Without a doubt.
Interesting point. And that's getting a little bit out there. That's some of the Zachariah Sitchin information, the 12th planet information, that he alleges that there is a large planet that does, on a large orbit, make its way every so many thousands of years into our system, and that the intelligent beings on this planet have interacted with our race in the past. And I understand it to a certain degree, but that one for me, I'm putting some of that information on the shelf, quite frankly.
And just as a side note, Zachariah Sitchin is not the only person to have translated the Sumerian text, and Zachariah Sitchin gets all his funding from the Rockefellers. So, do not believe everything that Zachariah Sitchin says. Find other translations of the Sumerian text. As a matter of fact, I was just at a person's website the other day who had a long list of discrepancies between what he has translated and from what Zachariah Sitchin is saying.
Interesting.
So never take one person's word for it, and especially don't take my word for it. Especially. You think we can fit in another caller?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get a few more.
Line 3, you're on the air.
Hey, what's going on, Corey?
Not a whole lot. Yourself?
Do you guys smoke weed or what?
I'm not smoking today, but thank you for your kind offer.
But,
Oh, really?
yeah, but I'm on probation right now, so I can't smoke. So,
Sometimes it doesn't really fit in very well with the whole metaphysical, meditation, that kind of lifestyle. It's...
Oh, wait.
Yes, go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say, are you guys like a 7-Day Adventist or a Mormon or something like that?
No, nothing like that.
No.
Did you watch the show?
No, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
No.
Is that true Osama bin Laden fucked your mom?
Yeah, that's where I thought that's where I thought you were heading. And you know, I should have hung up on you, but it's Corey's show, and I just don't like to hang up on his people like that. Yeah. Line 1, you're on the air.
Yeah, this basically, I've basically, been through all the procedures since like in the 99. I started out with the pyramids, and then found out about the Mayans, and then the Egyptians, and the mathematics, and then the masonry, and etc. And now to the point where I'm convinced, and I basically know about the beings and stuff. I want to just basically try to do all I can as far as learning. I don't want to really turn into a Jewish mystic, but I want to find out everything about the Zohar and about all that type of stuff. If you can, just give me some quick pointers on what I can read, how you guys make that transcendence, and so what we can do for us with our own being, as far as with faith and spiritually.
Hey, dude, I tell you what, my favorite book in all the world is The Mystical Kabbalah by Dion Fortune. She was not a Jew. The Kabbalah has evolved so much more from when it was just a Jewish thing only. It's now, there's the practical Kabbalah. There is, it's very much out there, and it's really just a tool and a set of tools to help you reach inside yourself and to learn about yourself. I've studied the Kabbalah myself for close to 10 years now, and it's helped make me the person that I am today. And I recommend not just the Kabbalah, but any type of meditational tools, anything that helps you reach inside yourself, and that way you can examine the parts of you. Because like we said earlier, know thyself. That's where it's all at. You have to start by knowing yourself. If you want to change the world, the best and easiest way to do it is to change yourself first.
True. And
You guys were mentioning the Sumerian text.
yes.
What's the actual thing that they're referencing to? Like, what did they find in Sumerian? What is the actual text called? That they're both interpreting Stitchin, and is that his name?
Right, Zachariah Stitchin. Thanks for your call. There was just, like, I believe in the 1600s or 1700s, they found well over 2,000 clay tablets that have a whole bunch of writing on it. It's kind of like hieroglyphics, because the Sumerians and the Egyptians, the Sumerians came along right after the Egyptians.
Right, that same time period. You have the Babylonian, Sumerian, Assyrian, Egyptian, the Hebrew culture, all kind of camped in one area, and so they borrowed from one another. And you can find, if you find through the Jewish books, you can find how they borrowed from the Egyptians, and you can trace it back that way. But it sounds like you are making the same kind of connections that I initially started to make too, to see, the larger picture. Okay, these guys have pyramids on this side, these guys have pyramids, what's the common thread between them, and start to understand, and who are the people behind the scenes pulling the strings that are trying to manipulate how much of this information is made available to us, and how much of it is tucked away and kept secret and just tucked away just for the specific use of this group that's trying to kind of keep us under wraps. We can make use of this knowledge too, and that's the whole key. And it's getting to the point where this knowledge is coming out. We can't hold it back anymore, and we're going to be able to jump in there, make use of it as we make ourselves fit in proper vessels to use this energy for good and positive means. We're going to be able to jump in there and help out with this and make a big difference. And I commend you for your initial studies in that direction, because it's going to lead you, if you have an earnest heart about it, it's going to lead you in the right direction.
Okay, if you like the show, if you like this conversation, there's something that you can do. Starting on the third Wednesday of every month, and it's going to be the first time we've got this going again, the 20th of March. It's going to be the philosophical, metaphysical meetings. It's every third Wednesday from 7 to whenever at Little City on the Drag. It's like 20-something in Guadalupe. And I'll be there, Corey will be there, and it's open to everybody. It's completely free. Just show up, and we'll start talking about things like we talked about tonight.
Throw in your 2 cents worth. You don't have to be a philosopher. Everybody has their own philosophy on different things. You may have a completely opposing viewpoint to us, and you might want to come down and try to get us squared away on the real deal, if you feel the need to do that as well. Everybody's viewpoint is welcome. I don't want to be exclusive. We want to bring everybody in as much as possible. Everybody's welcome. We meant to talk more about this actually, and we kind of got a little bit off track. But please, people, check out the philosophical meetings that we're going to start hosting. It's hopefully it'll be both Jeff and myself as much as possible, or either or when circumstances are going to prevent one of us from being down there. But we encourage everybody that's called us, emailed us in the past, that likes Therefore I Am, that likes Esoteric Science Roundtable. Check us out. Come to the philosophical meetings. We should have talked more about that. And that's